What's up, everybody, and welcome to the 20-somethings podcast.
Can anyone guess who our advertisers are? Anyone? Anyone? No? Well, good, because it's nobody. But we do have some affiliations that we want to have you check out.
One of the easiest ways to help us out is to go to our website and click on the Amazon banner at the top of our page. After that, we'll get 10% of your next order. No, that doesn't make sense. What is it? We get 10% of... After that, a small percentage of your order will go to us. It's not a lot, but every little bit counts.
Let me ask you something. How many subscriptions do you really have? You got Netflix? You got Spotify? You got MoviePass? You got Blue Apron? You got all sorts of things that you don't even know that you're paying for every month. Why not add something else? Go on to our Patreon and give us a little bit of money through a subscription-based service that basically gives cash to creators. And it's not like you're paying for nothing. Every time you pay to us each month, you're going to get a little bit of content from us that you wouldn't get otherwise. So if you give $1, maybe you'll get a good hug. If you give $2, maybe you'll get a hug and a kiss. Don't count on it. If you give $5, maybe you'll get a free t-shirt. Who knows? But help us out. Go to our Patreon and again, give us a little bit of cash. Along with these fine ways that you can help us out, you can also go to our donate page on soundpollination.com, scroll down a little bit, and you can click on our Lenny and Larry's affiliate link as well as our Blue Apron affiliate link. Both of those are going to help us out a little bit, and I believe the Blue Apron is actually going to help you out on your first order. First order, you get $30 off on Blue Apron. Check them out, people.
Don't go with Front Lab. Don't go with Back Lab. Go with Side Lab. The industry standard graphic design company based out of Brooklyn, New York. One of the partners in it is my cousin Monica. They are all super, super talented there. They did all of the graphics for Sound Pollination. They did our covers. They did our logo, which is now on all of our merch. You cannot really have a successful business without legitimate looking graphics such as logos, business cards, all of the above. So definitely hit them up if you are in need of any sort of graphic design work, and they will do an excellent job for your company. All right, everybody, episode 3 of the 20-somethings podcast. Today we have Dylan Owen on. Dylan Owen is a rapper, or I would call him a poet as well, and I do. During this episode, Dylan and I actually go way back. We grew up in the same hometown, upstate New York, in a small town called Goshen. I remember Dylan on the schoolyard when we were growing up having rap battles, and since then he has come a long way, releasing multiple EPs, tons of really amazing cinematic music videos. His lyrics are some of the most visual that I've ever heard, and I've always admired him, his music, his content, and it was just really, really nice to have a chance to sit down, catch up, and have an intimate conversation. So without further ado, Dylan Owen. Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of 20-somethings. We're here today with Dylan Owen. He is a rapper, but I usually like to ask our guests how they want to label themselves. So, Dylan, you want to introduce yourself and tell people, I guess, what you do?
Definitely. How's it going, everybody? I'm Dylan. I'm an artist from the city. I rap, I play guitar, play keyboard, and I'd say my music is style somewhere between hip-hop and singer-songwriter.
Yeah, definitely. I would also throw in poet. This past week, I've been talking about how you're coming on the show, and I've showed your music to a handful of people. I actually showed it to my girlfriend, and she said he sounds more like a poet than a rapper. I'm not sure how you respond to commentary like that.
That's cool. Well, I think it's flattering. Like, I don't know if I'm good enough with the writing to be considered poetry, but I definitely appreciate it, and I do think of it a lot as, I'd say I approach it a lot the way people probably approach poetry.
Yeah.
And I write poetry all the time, and that's a lot of what ends up as the lyrics of the songs.
Yeah. Well, the themes that you seem to incorporate into your work definitely steps outside of, I guess, what you normally expect when you're listening to rap music.
For sure. Like, I don't listen to rap really at all, and I've listened to your music before because Grant has played it, and then of course once you're coming on the show, I was like, oh, I gotta really like listen to his stuff and kind of get familiar with it. And I started listening, and he's one right about the poetry thing, and two, like I was listening, I was like, wow, like the way he involves live instruments with that sort of flow that you have, it's like more of a poetry flow than it is like a normal, I guess what I would typically think of as
Like
rap.
it's not Drake.
Right, exactly,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, well, in terms of flow, especially with hip hop right now, everyone's doing, let's say, like really high tempos and those kind of flows. And I'm definitely sticking with the flow that is like more natural for me. And I think it's because the kind of like lower tempos that I use and that sort of, let's just call it like a kind of boom bap tempo range, that's more of where I feel like I can get my sentences out the most clearly and also kind of fit the most words in without it sounding jumbled or whatever. So
Yeah.
it's definitely, for me, it's all about the writing and the words and the poetry of it. So I think that description is totally on.
Yeah, for sure. So, and in addition to that, and we were talking about this a little bit before the show started, it's not totally recent because I know you've played with a band before, but in the video that you sent me over, it's the live version of Mourn, which was
Yeah.
awesome.
Thanks.
And I saw you've been posting some clips from the show that you had a couple weeks ago. Like you're playing with what instruments are you playing with now? A violin, guitar?
Yeah, so my normal setup will be Gabe Valley plays violin and keyboard, and then Nate Sander plays trumpet and guitar. And then on some songs, I'll switch out and play the acoustic, and then probably one or two songs I'm going to end up playing keys live on. But that's sort of the setup.
That's awesome.
And for like a full-on live show with a speaker system, that whole thing, we'll play a beat and then layer that with all the instruments, so it'll be like a hybrid
Yeah.
kind of thing.
How's that?
But I just wanted to say, it's funny you bring that up because if the listeners don't know, Grant and I went to high school together, so that's how we know each other originally. And that is kind of how I started, was with a band and
Yeah.
playing with instruments. Like that's sort of in like 8th, 9th grade, I was playing guitar and rapping in my room, but I didn't ever see a world where that would end up like being able to record that. Like I just didn't understand how you could really do that. So now I'm kind of like coming around to my roots again. So it's just funny you remember that.
Yeah.
'Cause I think that's kind of unique to you.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's actually really funny. It's not funny, our history, but it's fascinating because I was telling Keith earlier this week that I remember being quite young with you, like maybe 10 or 11 years old, because we used to hang out at Dinsmore's all the time, like
Yeah.
all the time. And I remember being so young, but you were rapping then. Like so we were at their old house and they had the drum set in the front room. And I have a vivid memory, and you might not remember it, but I remember we were just like fooling around as kids, like playing music, like somebody was on the drums and stuff, and like you were rapping, and you were like, "Oh yeah, your rapper name could be Fat Grant," like because Fat Joe was really big back then.
Wow. I don't remember that.
Yeah, but it's interesting because like you were rapping from such a young age. Like
When was that? Like 7th grade or?
I think even earlier than that. I
Were
think
you?
that was probably
Wow.
like 4th or 3rd grade or something.
Were you a
I
little-
I don't know.
always-
I have a
I always like try to think back to that. Like I had a similar conversation with somebody with Connor the other day, Connor Burnett.
Yeah.
And we were just like reminiscing on those times at the Dinsmores in that house. And I don't know, it's funny, man, because I spent a lot of time there, and so did you growing up. Like
Yeah.
we were just always there. I don't remember the drum set or anything though, but I definitely believe that.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I feel like when I was in like 6th grade would have probably been the first time I would have been rapping like out loud live and with us jamming or something.
Yeah. So like back then, who were you listening to?
Back then, I was listening to a mix of just stuff that was on the radio, I think, at that point when I was like in 6th grade, you know?
Yeah.
But my dad used to play a lot of music in the car on the way to school. He would play Beastie Boys and Kid Rock
Yeah.
and Cake and these kind of weird random things that I do think probably influenced me. But there was a lot of random mixtape music like that. Like I loved the Beastie Boys. I remember that. I loved Smash Mouth early on. That was like one of my favorite albums when I was young.
It was
I know you
everybody's
guys
favorite
loved
album.
it too.
Yeah,
Oh
of
my God, it
course.
was amazing.
Of course.
Smash. What's the other? It was like Smash Mouth and like Uncle Cracker. Remember
Yeah,
him?
yeah, like all that stuff. That was all on the radio, so I'm sure that influenced me. And then, um, sixth grade, seventh grade, I was getting into more mainstream hip hop, like just Eminem, Jay Z, whatever. Like I love Jay Z, the Black Album, that kind of stuff. And then through that, I got into like kind of mainstream, but kind of alternative hip hop, like Talib Kweli, Mos Def, those type dudes. And I was really into that stuff too. And I was into like Linkin Park and
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that
for
stuff.
sure. Did
And
you
then-
find like when
yeah.
you started breaking into the hip hop community, how did that go over for you? Because you don't necessarily fit the image of like, again, your stereotypical rapper, you know, and again, just like with the instruments that you utilize and the way that you, or the content that you talk about in your music, like how did people within that community respond? So you're like playing shows, I'm assuming, with maybe some other rappers, or were you just playing with band? I don't know.
Back then, I was just playing me and a DJ, but yeah,
Yeah.
we would definitely play with other rappers and everything. I think it was, people definitely would think of it as different, you know?
Yeah.
I think it was always like, wow, this kid is definitely doing something different. And I know that the music I make is not, you know, straightforward hip hop. It's not kind of like for everybody. So I think the people that like it, hopefully, you know, like it a lot. And then some people, they just probably don't get it. And that's fine. I expect that.
It's like good. You have a really good element of like storytelling in your rap.
Thanks,
When
yeah.
I listen to it, yeah, like it's weird because I'm listening and it like takes me back to like suburbs.
Yeah.
And like it, like I can see the things in the story happen, the exact same things happening to me in
Yeah.
like 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade,
That's
family
really
stuff.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like you're very good at element of storytelling.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
It's so visual. Like
It
is,
is,
really
man.
visual.
It really is.
Like that's just how I write. Is like just kind of trying to describe an image that I'm seeing, sort of thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I actually wrote down a note because I was listening to your music and taking notes of stuff that I wanted to discuss with you. And one of the things that I love about your music, just going hand in hand with that, is that it is so relatable and yet it's so personal at the same time.
Thanks,
You know,
man.
like
Yeah.
people can, like I listen to it as well and I get these flashbacks of memories, but the verses that you are rapping, they're also so personal to you. So I'm wondering, like, how do you think that happens? Like finding that perfect balance between being personal yet also in a weird way universal. It's both at the same time.
That's awesome. I mean, I think of it as that just sort of the life experiences that I've had are probably pretty universal. You know, that's always how I've thought of it. Like when people say they relate, like to me, it's like personal documentation music. Like that's always like, it's like a journal or a diary kind of thing, like whatever. But I think just the stuff I've gone through is probably fairly similar to what people have gone through. Like I don't think I had some crazy extreme upbringing in any direction. I think it's the experiences that I went through are probably pretty normal and that I go through now, but I just don't feel like people describe them in music often enough. So that's like kind of what I try to set out to do, is talk about those things that they might seem ordinary, but I think they're important to shed light on and talk about, and you know, other people relate to them too. They definitely do.
I think too, like because it's rap and not other music. Like if you were doing like a pop song or like, you know, like a country song or whatever, you don't have all of that available space to be able to talk in at length like
There's
that.
a conversational element. to
Yeah,
it.
there's a
Yeah,
really
for
and
sure.
the amount of words that you're just, you know, naturally in it being a rap song able to throw in there allows it to be super conversational and super personal, but you know, still having the overlying theme of what most music has. Like it's a love song, or it's like a song about family, or it's a song, but you just have a ton of context to
Well, I
work
think
with.
that's why I'm drawn to rap, is because it allows me to actually talk like so much more, you know? It's like to me it's the closest genre to like writing, like long form writing, you know? That's sort of how I think of it, short of doing like some like spoken word.
That's what I was gonna say.
whatever.
It's like a cousin of spoken word. It's like
Yeah,
one step
yeah.
away from spoken word.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I watched the video that you sent over, the teaser for the album,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
was really beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that along
Thanks,
with the
man.
Break Some Ice video, that
Super
cinematographer,
cool.
stunning work.
Brian,
stunning
yeah,
work.
Brian is crazy.
What's his
well,
deal?
So Brian's the director of both those, and
Okay.
his name is Brian Petchers, and he's basically he is going to be doing like all the visuals for the album, and we've done a lot of them so far. Like I can show you so much more.
Yeah, definitely.
So that teaser, like he shot handheld on his camera and everything, and then Break Some Ice, we got like a big team together to do it. But Brian and me met like probably 3-4 years ago, and he just loved the music, and he's like, dude, I really think I can bring it to life visually. And I like didn't know like what he was going for at first. Like I just didn't, I had never had that type of experience with a director, you know? It was kind of always like more of a sort of work for hire kind of thing, and you're just trying to get a visual up to support your song, whatever. But Brian was just like, this is like 3-4 years ago for my EP There's More to Life in 2015. He was like, man, let me just make a little teaser for it, like 1 minute long type of thing. And then this 1 minute teaser became this like sort of bigger project, and we threw everything into it, and it became very cinematic. And that's the There's More to Life trailer that's on YouTube. And then for Break Some Ice and the new album, we wanted to like take that concept and do it for the whole album and try to really represent everything.
Is that what's happening? Are you doing
YouTube.
videos for all the songs?
Pretty much for all of them, yeah.
Wow.
That's really cool.
Like there'll be at least some visual for every song. Trying to think of how many we've done so far, but definitely like somewhere like 5, 6, 7 or something already. And they're all different. Like they're not all like huge productions. Some are just a one-shot thing, like whatever. But we do want to try to cover everything if possible.
That's gonna be such a fun project for somebody with a camera to work on.
Yeah, to do
with
the
your
whole
content,
album.
because when you're saying it's so visual,
Yeah.
it's got to be really fun for somebody
Thanks.
with a
I
camera.
think Brian brings it to life in this really interesting way. Like, I don't know. It's funny because like my writing is so visual, but it's not easy for me to come up with video ideas. I don't know why. It's just always been a little hard for me, but Brian does it in a way that I think it's nice because it complements the words, but it's not so on the nose that it's like identically what I'm saying.
Yeah,
It's just enough of a compliment that the videos have like, they have their own life too outside of the words. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah,
Does he do
definitely.
the editing as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause the editing is really good, especially for the teaser for the album.
Thanks.
The way he's cutting in and out of things was really cool.
Yeah, he's cool. He's definitely the real deal.
Yeah,
he's the man.
Super talented guy. In the teaser, you say that your music is like it allows people to access that world inside your head. Do you feel like what he's capturing mimics that, like what you're seeing, or what does that world look like? Do you know what I'm talking about when you say that in the teaser?
Yeah, definitely. That's like the world of my music and lyrics, and this kind of world where I want everything to be the way that I visualize it, in either something that I'm dreaming of for the future or how I kind of wish my past could have been. Your kind of like idealized version of your world. That's like where I try to write my music. And yeah, I would say Brian is definitely tapping into that for sure. I mean, he's the first person that I feel like he just has these ideas without me and him even really needing to talk about it that matches up perfectly. Yeah. And I don't know, it's cool. Like I hear people say stuff like that, and sometimes like you're just like, oh, whatever, but you know, they're just saying that. But it really feels that way with Brian. Like there have been some just crazy kind of coincidence things that he'll send me. Like, I'll give you guys an example so you know what I'm saying. Like, he wanted to do this one video for a song that's going to be on the album, and he's like, dude, this Bob Dylan photo of him in New York City really inspires me. I want to, like, recreate this, like, this location, whatever, this vibe. And that was a photo that I had, like, as my desktop background, and I just love this photo. And, like, me and him have never talked about Bob Dylan. Like, it's just so random. So I think we're just kind of creatively on the same page, and we probably both just view my music very similarly, you know?
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, I don't feel like everyone like totally gets my music. So I do think that that's like a nice, unique thing. I'm very lucky to have him on board.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to be kind of a nerve-wracking thing collabing, especially in that way. Because it's like, this is your child, right? This is your creative child that you're handing off to somebody.
Trusting someone else.
Yeah,
to,
there's
like,
definitely a lot of trust that goes into that.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
He does a great job, so it's like...
Yeah, it's been great so far, honestly.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. Like, it's super fun and super motivating to make the videos, and just to think about being able to share that much more stuff with people because I've always kind of laid low for a few years, whatever. So like now finally I have a lot of stuff to share.
Yeah. What were you doing while you were laying low?
I'm just, all sorts of things, like definitely writing,
Yeah.
kind of obsessing over the lyrics and the songs and what to do next and what to say in the songs and all that stuff. Like just
Yeah.
overthinking it all way too much. And then also just moving back to the city was a big thing that took up time. So yeah, I would say those are like probably the two main things.
Yeah. I totally get that.
Yeah, like just all sorts of life stuff. Like my grandpa passing away while I was living upstate, living back home. That was like a big thing that I think in hindsight kind of took up a lot of my energy more than I realized at the time.
Yeah. I want to get into that a little bit if you're comfortable talking about it.
Totally cool with it.
So when did that take place? Because I know, so you released the song Mourn, and it's really there's a weight to that song. It's like a very heavy and emotional song.
Thanks.
And you definitely get that feeling of mourning through that song, I think, or I did. So I want to dig into what that experience was like, and the experience of losing somebody so close to you, but also the experience of writing about it in such a vivid way.
Yeah.
So you want to walk us through that?
Yeah, definitely. So, what I kind of hinted at it on There's More to Life, the EP, like that he was sick at the time. So that was like 2015. And he had cancer, and you might have even met him at some point, but he's like a small town printer. He's from Washingtonville, like very, Irish Catholic, went to church every day type of person, and really gave like so much back to that community. So he was definitely my grandpa, but I kind of knew him in this unique sort of way where it's like he's my grandpa, but he's also kind of this local figure. So I think while he was sick, it was just like a kind of crazy turbulent time that went on for like a year, while I was living at home at my mom's house, which is like 10 minutes from where my grandparents live. So we'd be sort of driving back and forth, and then also somebody else in my family had cancer at the same time. So it was like a lot of like heavy cancer stuff going on all the time, and like medical equipment in the house, like whatever.
Jeez,
so
yeah.
at the time I was like, aware of it, but it's weird when you're in a situation like that. Like
You don't process it.
yeah, like you don't really process it, and you don't know what to think, and you're thinking more in the moment of like each day how it's affecting you. But I don't know. So I knew 100% it was something like I wanted to write about on the new music. I just didn't know how, and I tried in all these different demos to kind of like fit it in, like as like, oh, maybe it'll just be the second verse just about him, whatever. And then finally I was like, all right, let me just do a full song about this. And so I wanted it to be definitely about him, but I also wanted it to be about the concept of just losing your first grandparent, because all my other grandparents are still alive. God bless. So that was kind of like what I was thinking. That's something, everyone experiences, and I never really hear anybody rap or sing about it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
No, like,
But writing it, like, did it offer some sort of closure or like healing with, I guess, just coping with, I don't know, losing a grandparent?
It's an interesting question. I guess it sort of did, but I feel like maybe I'm gonna get that through, like, just now that having the song out and kind of playing it live, like through that process a bit more. To me, it's like a little bit of like documenting it. Like that's what it feels like. Like it's an important part to me of what's happened to me over the last few years. So I want to make sure it's documented and written down, that kind of thing. So maybe that's my way of like getting closure on it. Yeah, like I feel like I've kind of said what I need to say about it in the music, so I feel good about that. And it's definitely, I mean, people will hear, but it's definitely like a theme on the album too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a beautiful song, man.
Thanks, man.
I really enjoyed listening to it, and the live version as well. Both of them are great.
Thanks. Yeah. It was like different in a songwriting sense, because I just did it all on keyboard. And that's the first song I've like composed it all throughout on keys. Like it's not just like the verses will be this melody that I write and then you loop it. It's like kind of progresses as it goes on. And I tried to push myself to like, okay, if this lyric has this, let me like throw a minor chord in there that's not in the first verse, but makes sense here type of thing. And I mean, you could hear it musically too, but I tried to like play outside the key and like throw in some other
smart.
stuff. Yeah. Just to give it a different emotion, you know? Yeah.
Definitely. And the emotion, I mean, I felt that the emotion sort of does change throughout the song, like when the verses, then it goes into the female verses or the female vocals in the chorus, I guess.
Yeah.
Which, there's sort of a lightness to the chorus, I think, of what is that moment that they're singing about?
I think it's about looking back on, it's like years later after you've lost somebody, and you're looking back thinking like, wow, we spent so much time mourning and grieving over this. So it's sort of like the opposite of what the verses are in a way.
Yeah. It feels that way.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, and I don't know, that's just what felt natural to me. Like you're mourning the loss of someone, you miss them, you know, it's so sad whenever you lose somebody, but you're also like, the whole experience takes a lot, I think, from everyone. Like it takes a lot of your like energy, your time. Like if you guys, you know, have ever lost a family member, you know, like everything that goes into it, like driving to people's houses and getting like the eulogy ready and the wake and the funeral. And like, it's just a crazy experience. And I feel like that I wanted to capture that element of it too, because that was a lot of what I experienced. I felt like none of us in my family even had time to actually grieve or to like feel the pain as much, because we were so caught up in like the chaos of it all and the chaos of like the hospital shit and whatever. So maybe that's why there's like that other side to the emotion.
I totally get that. I actually just lost my grandfather like 2 months ago.
Sorry to hear that.
No, yeah, thank you. But I wasn't as close to him, which was interesting when I was listening to the song. He lived in Florida, as my whole life. He didn't really we didn't really connect that much. But listening to the song, it was weird because I was listening to it, but I knew that, you know, I was obviously thinking of my own grandfather that had just passed away, but the images that were coming into my head, the way that you were talking about it, was my other grandfather, who I actually have here, who I haven't lost, who has been around my entire life. So that was
Interesting.
Yeah, it was a really weird thing. I was like, I was thinking of one, but then I had the image of the other. Like when you're talking about the hunchback and everything in the car, and I was like, oh, I have that image, but I'm thinking, you know, I almost feel bad for thinking of the other grandfather in that way. But
I don't think you should feel bad about that, but maybe that's a good thing, because then it's like, I guess, just a reminder or whatever to
but
appreciate kind of thing. I feel that with my other grandparents too and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess everyone has that kind of experience, you know, the grandparents they're close to and the grandparents that they're not.
Yeah,
but
I haven't.
With the eulogy thing though, because that's so true. Like I said, I wasn't that close to him, but my dad was obviously super close to his own father. And when everything happened, like, it's total chaos.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like family members end up going at each other. Like wives of people get involved, or husbands of people that aren't even part of the family get involved and start like, it's this crazy time period, and nobody has any time to grieve.
Yeah, you don't have time to mourn.
No.
It's like, yeah, so that's what I was going for with like mourn all the time we've killed kind of thing. Like you spend so much time in the chaos of it.
Yeah.
That sort of emotion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you've like experienced that too with the chaos of it all.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It's like,
it's chaotic. And then nobody ends up crying until the funeral happens, and then all of a sudden it's like you like realize what everything has culminated to.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like this huge weight. You know, like my family said, like, they hadn't seen my dad cry at all. And then as soon as he like got up there to start delivering the eulogy, it was like boom, him and his brother just like
That's so
like
sad.
waterworks going. It's like, yeah, well, that because it's like the final realization. Everything else has been kind of getting this whole thing ready, getting the gravesite ready, calling the church and all this type of stuff, and you're not really thinking about what the actual thing that you're doing is.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, you're putting someone to rest. Like that's a big event.
definitely.
And you captured that pretty well in the song.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All my grandparents are still alive, so I haven't had to experience that. But I don't know. I grew up with my grandparents, so that will be an interesting thing when it happens. Like they raised me at my father's house.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's weird because having not lost a grandparent, it's an experience that I actually cannot even imagine. You know?
It's a weird thing.
Like I don't know. I can't even put myself there
Mhm.
because it just seems so surreal to think of somebody being gone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about that, man.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. Rest in peace, John
Yeah.
Spear.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's a fantastic way to keep a piece of him alive and,
definitely.
forever,
Yeah,
for
that's
eternity,
for
right?
My tribute.
That's
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure he's loving that.
Yeah.
But outside of that song, what does your writing process usually look like? This is I love talking to people about this because I know everybody has their own creative process that they go through when they're formulating whatever they do, whether
Yeah.
they're a writer, musician, or anything. Everybody has like their own rituals and stuff like that. So I'm curious as to what yours is, because I'm a writer myself, and I don't think I've quite gotten mine down because it changes a lot. It seems like it's determined on the day, like, so even if I do the same ritual that I know works for me some days, it's like if I'm just not in that mood that day, or like I'm feeling particularly anxious or something, it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I would like to get a ritual down. It's like, okay, like if I just do these things, steps 1 through 4, then I'll be able to write.
I've always thought that too. Like, I wish I had that kind of like routine thing.
Yeah.
But anytime I've tried to replicate a different way that I've done it, it just doesn't work. Like that's
Okay.
I've never been able to be like, okay, I made this one song this way, so I'm going to do that identical thing. Like
Yeah.
it always ends up as something else. And I'm like still getting comfortable with that idea that like it's going to be different every time. Cause I
Yeah.
know exactly what you mean. Like I want that so badly.
It's
too,
frustrating
where it's like,
sometimes.
here's how I write a song.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. But I don't know. I think it's kind of like that's just making any art. Like you got to accept that it's like it'll come out a little bit differently than your vision of it in a way, and that's sort of what makes it cool and natural. Like if you could fully control it, would it make it like as unique of a thing?
No, and
then
it
anyone
shows
could just do it.
because when you are forcing it like that, and it's just one of those days where it's not going to happen, but you're like, I'm going to make it happen. It's terrible usually. That's the piece of paper you're crumbling up.
For
and,
sure.
You
When
know,
you're writing, like, because I'm like when I was writing music, it was very much like you could have a day where you all of a sudden it would just come to you and you are knocking on a song in like 20 to 30 minutes. But then you could also have a day where you're sitting pen and paper with a guitar for like 3 hours. Like, I just want to get this chorus right, and it's like it's just not gonna happen.
So my process is normally through some kind of just random stuff. I'll get like a line in my head or something that I think of, like let's say on like the subway here, that sort of experience, and that line or a few lines will just stick with me for a long time, and I'll usually write them into like a poem or whatever, play it on the guitar, just kind of like ruminate on these lines that are special to me, and then eventually Nico will send me a beat that feels right, and I'll kind of fit the line. I'll like find a beat that sort of matches up with that line, and then fill in all the blanks of like, okay, now I could make this.
So he'll send you a beat after reading the line, or he just sends you beats?
He'll just send. He's just like so creative. He's
Yeah,
like doing his thing. Yeah. So like when I say these lines, it's like, let's just say I have.
Do you have any in your phone right now that you can like read?
Yeah, like so many. Like I have I have a place where I just post all sorts of poems. It's like just like a private online page that nobody reads but me, but it's like my online kind of like
That's cool.
archive, and so I'll always like go on there and just see what fits, and then I'll just play on guitar and keyboard too and try to just find something that matches up, so then I'll write the rest of the song like new, kind of in the moment. But a lot of it, these lines are like things I thought of years ago. Like there's definitely stuff in Mourn like that too, or like the chorus line, like Mourn all the time we've killed. Like I've definitely written that in like 10 other demos that never came out.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of like crazy, like
I've
process that
experiencing
goes
that
on forever.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I've
you know
had
what
the
I'm
same
talking about.
thing, and he knows it too. I will
Yeah.
go and rewrite the same song
Over and over again.
many
I've
times.
heard
For
so many
years.
of your songs.
For years.
So many different
songs I wrote
ways.
when I'm 18, I'm still reworking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm taking the lyrics from that song, but now putting it with this new music and
Right.
trying to figure out what that puzzle is for that piece of content.
Right.
It takes a while to get to that
That's what makes
a
it
place
good,
of
though.
satisfaction.
That's what makes it good, because if you just do it
Yeah.
one and done, it just
Well,
doesn't.
it's good to a point because there's at least for me, a flaw of mine is like it's never good enough, which is why I
like an
went
obsession.
whatever it was, like 6 years without releasing one song because
Right.
I'm just like I'm not satisfied with it. I just released a song last summer. It was the first time I had released a song since my freshman year of college, so about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's because I always felt it's just hard for me to get to a place of like I approve of this, like my stamp of approval to put it out there.
Something that helps me with that is writing it in a project, like giving it the context of like writing it in sort of within the theme of an album or something like that, because then you're like, okay, this song, this is what'll make it feel right. You know, when I'm always just kind of doing like one and done type of songs, that's never really felt totally right for me. But like, here's a line, for example, that this is going to end up in some future song, like probably 2 years after they hear it. When we broke into each other's lives, it was vandalism. And when we killed the best parts of our time, it was red-handed bloody murder. That's like
Nice.
something I definitely am going to fit in there. Keep messing
It's funny
around
because
with
you
it.
read that, I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a Dylan Owen line. Like it does, it really does.
Yeah.
Those lines, because you have lines like that too that you repeat throughout your songs, right? Like you
Yeah,
have
there's
certain
definitely a lot
lines
that
that
repeat.
reoccur. It's so cool, man. Like your music is really just like a document of your life, and so like every time one of those lines is repeated, it's like, oh, Dylan's tapping back into that memory or whatever that represents to him.
Thanks.
That's
yeah.
cool. Like,
Thank
not a
you.
lot of people do that.
I try to do it really intentionally, you know. Like
Yeah.
somebody asked me about it once. This guy Joey, who he's got a "Keep Your Friends Close" tattoo on his arm that I drew out for him.
Cool.
And
Oh, that's awesome.
I remember he asked me about it on like a Q&A I did online, and it just stuck with me. His question, like he was like, "Oh, when you do that, is there like a real purpose of what you're tying together, kind of thing?" And there definitely is. Like I try to like not do it for no reason, you know.
Yeah. It's not just lines. Like sometimes they'll even be like a piano part that'll just show up in a song.
Yeah, there's
like in the
that
same
one
way,
piano
it just like reoccurs.
For sure.
That's cool. And also names. You drop names in your songs of people.
They're all just the real people that, I mean, you know a lot of them.
Yeah,
Like,
no, I know. Well, I
Molly
know
gets a lot
like
of shout
Ghost.
outs.
Like I know Lascaris, and
Yeah,
so he
Ghost.
occurs in a lot of your music. I always love when artists do that. I think it's cool. I love hearing like whether it's a girl's name or a guy's name, and just wondering what the relationship is.
Because you love hearing a piece of their life, which is why the music is so cool. Is because it's like you're getting a piece of like their life. So like when you hear someone use an actual name, it's like, oh, like they know that. You can almost hear it in their voice.
But it's like they're characters, though.
Yeah.
You know? It's cool in that way.
I do think a lot about that because like me and Molly don't talk anymore. Like we haven't talked in years.
Who is
so
that?
She is who I dated like all of high school, basically. It was like my high school
Oh,
sweetheart.
Molly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely know
I know her.
And,
Yeah, I thought you said Miley.
No,
Okay.
Molly. So it's funny because yeah, it is like she's just sort of a character in a way. But I don't know. It all kind of gets like blurred together at some point.
Yeah. Who are the other people that occur often in your music? Like what's that?
Definitely Ghost.
Yeah.
Definitely Molly. There's also some other themes are like having roses. Like I got roses, so I need to bid farewell. Like that's in Senioritis and the Best Fears of Our Lives.
Yeah.
And then also on the new stuff, there's going to be someone named Annie that I mention a lot.
Yeah, I
And
noticed that.
My
yeah.
whole project, Keep Your Friends Close, was pretty much about her. And on the new album, like I just didn't really say her by name on Keep Your Friends Close, but the new album talks a lot about that too.
Yeah. And what's your relationship with her?
So we dated a few years back, a while back, and it was this kind of like cross-country long-distance relationship.
Well, she was West Coast?
Yeah, like Midwest, West Coast.
Okay.
And it's been an interesting thing for me because that was definitely like it's kind of like the most intense relationship I've ever had. And it's one that I think I can just kind of write about indefinitely. And it's been a little hard for me over the years to cope with just like letting it go and moving on from it. It sort of feels like this death of my childhood kind of thing. Like when we broke up, which was during college. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like this, just like losing your first grandparent. To me, that's like a symbolic thing. This feels like it's like you're losing your first love type of thing.
Yeah,
So
I totally get that.
that's kind of like what she represents to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I do, at least in my head, I don't write about it in my music the same way that you do, but I also, when I'm thinking back on my life, it's like, so when you're learning about history and it's like, oh, this was the golden ages, like this was the middle ages, like all of that, like I break my life into stages like that, but it's determined by the people in my life at the time. A lot of the time it is who I'm dating, just because that's the closest relationship that you have with somebody. But it's fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, like I define these periods in my life based on my relationships at the time.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's
Yeah.
weird.
And don't you think like the first one or the first kind of like big one, there's like just some magic to it. Like it's something.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, man.
And
Me and
what's
him talk
crazy-
about this all the time because we
Yeah.
went into college with girlfriends.
Yeah.
And
And like significant, like they were like both like year, like 2-ish year, right? Like we were like,
yeah, but we were
deep
so
into
we were young and
Yeah.
yeah. But it is like that, man.
It's
it really
weird
is.
to me that like when we are, let's say, 40 years from now, right? When we're like in our kind of old age or, 40, 50, 60 years, like we're still going to remember these people and like the impact they had on us. Like
Yeah.
that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that like our grandparents probably have those people somewhere in their memory too.
Right.
That they think about, like, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
That's weird to
It
think
takes
about.
some time too. Like you're absolutely right. There is something magical about those relationships. There was a period of time where I felt like, oh man, does that exist in adulthood? Like
Right.
can that magic be found in adulthood? Or is it something that just, it seems like lust is an emotion you feel way more frequently when you're young. Like lust over a place or romanticizing things. Like you romanticize things more frequently when you're young.
Because you
And
haven't
as you
really
age,
experienced
that
everything. It's like when you move out of your childhood home. It's like you have like that want for that childhood home. It's just because you haven't experienced other places. It's because that's the only one. But once you go to another home, within a week you'll be fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I go through phases. Where things seem more vibrant and then less vibrant. Like when I moved to New York, like I was in love with this city in a way where it represented such a fairy tale to me, like a fairy tale lifestyle. Like my friends in New York and my life in New York. After moving from Goshen, it's such a huge shift, like a dramatic shift. For those people listening in, Dylan and I grew up in a small town upstate called Goshen, population 5,000 people,
Yeah,
maybe
I'd say
something like that.
5,000. People, I just think it's funny because, like, I don't know, people, they hear, oh, we're from a few hours north of the city. Like, you don't expect it to be as removed as Goshen is. Like,
Yeah.
it's very,
Well, yeah, and that
very
happens
rural.
quickly.
And I didn't realize that growing up. Like, I didn't realize that till I moved to the city. And then people were like, whoa, where you're from, there's like just farms and cows walking around and like
Yeah.
there are still dirt roads and
Yeah, and there's places without cell phone service and stuff like that.
yeah, and it was just normal to us. And
Yeah.
like everyone in the town and
Yeah.
You gotta drive a bit to get some
their
to get
parents.
something.
Yeah.
and-
yeah,
How
completely.
do you feel going back there now? Like when you go back and forth, do you feel like, because for me, it's kind of like, I feel a bit out of place when I go back to Goshen now. Maybe because I've just been living, in Manhattan and Brooklyn for 8 years now. That's not necessarily my home anymore, but just who I am, I think, who I was there is quite different than who I am now here. What's that like for you?
It's interesting. I think when I go back there, there's still something special about it that feels like it gives me a little insight into like who I was growing up or something like that. And I'm always, I don't know, I always am like trying to kind of figure that out, like who exactly I was at this age. That's why like the story is so interesting about me rapping over the drums because like I just don't remember that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't know. So when I go back there, it feels kind of, it's like filled with nostalgia. Like I'm stepping into this world where I remember driving around in my first car, like this old beat up Honda Civic, talking on the phone to Annie, who was in Colorado at the time. Like these kind of memories and like driving the 7 minutes from my mom's house to Nico's house to work on music and work on senioritis, and like it's filled with all that stuff, and it's crazy, but there's also like a lot of other stuff there too, like you're saying, like the area has changed a lot. It's definitely not the exact place that we grew up in. It's a little bit less rural as time goes on, and yeah, like of course me now, like I want to be doing music stuff all day, and like it's hard to do that when you're in a small town and there's only like, you know, so many creative people that live there.
I remember being so jealous of like kids in Warwick. I just felt like they had such a better scene for music,
man.
right?
Oh my God.
Well,
yeah,
in our high school,
same.
like who made music? Not many
There's
people.
only a couple of us,
Yeah.
really. Like that's kind of crazy that there was only a few of us, and nobody really had amazing equipment or anything like that. Like all you know, friends I've met over the last few years, like they had people in their high school who had real bands and real recording stuff,
Well,
and they knew how to like play at venues.
I was saying about-
we were in our small town bubble up there.
Yeah, we really were. Yeah, because I remember listening to Warwick's like a town that was like 20 minutes.
Is that
in
where we
some
played when we went up
yeah,
there?
we played it because we used to play together in
Where'd
a
you
band.
guys
We played
play?
Tuscan Cafe.
Okay.
Yeah. I played
Classic.
there like a handful of times. You did too. I went to a
Yeah.
couple of your shows there.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the place.
I did the
man.
open mics there too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever did those.
I don't. Maybe. I can't remember.
They were like
Maybe.
Wednesday or Thursday nights.
I did a handful of open mics around like Orange County, but yeah, it was always a struggle to do music there, and I felt really insecure about doing music because of that. Like I felt like ill-equipped to play because I just felt like other people had more equipment and had just more of a following, or I
For
don't know.
sure, but it was sort of beautiful in a way. Like now that I'm like fully just doing music all the time and I have a lot of friends who are artists and stuff, there's something beautiful about just doing it with no resources. Like just
Yeah.
with small town, like playing at an open mic, you make like $10 cash, and you just keep, like I would keep it in a plastic bag in my room, and that was like the money I saved up and up to then pay to record. Like
Yeah.
it was really like that, and there's something so cool about that, especially because it just makes it about the art at the end of the day. Like it's every little thing is so precious, you know?
Yeah.
Now there's like so many people, you just record a song in like 2 minutes and upload it, whatever.
Yeah.
It's crazy how like the music industry has shifted during our lifetime. I mean, just from the time that we were in high school, 13, 14, where it was like, if you're not on MySpace, you're not playing music, really. Like you're nobody. And now MySpace is dead. And then it was like, well, if you're not on iTunes, you're nobody. And now iTunes is kind of dead.
Yeah.
And now we have Spotify and other streaming services like Apple Music.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that earlier today, how MySpace was like, people kind of tend to talk about social media like it's such a new thing, but like to me, MySpace was pretty similar to like what goes on now.
It was like
Yeah.
the first.
Like there were people who were really cool on MySpace, and you would just be so envious of like, oh man, they're
you
like,
could be very
so
successful
cool.
on MySpace.
I remember messaging like artists being like, I love you. Like, can you put me in your top 8? Remember?
Yeah.
Like just to
I have
like,
friends now who I met through MySpace, and people who follow my music who
Yeah.
found it on MySpace when I was in like 9th grade.
yeah, totally. I remember listening to your music on MySpace. That was where, yeah. When I recorded my first EP, it was up on MySpace.
Yeah.
Yeah, that died quick too. It was
did.
like it was.
Well, it was
Well, it just
as
died
soon as-
so hard. Like the way
Yeah,
it
but
died is
because
like
it was
nothing
so
else.
It was-
big.
As
and then
soon
it
as
was just
Facebook came out, it was like
yeah,
the whole thing just went down. I don't know if Facebook came out like 07, 08. Well, that's when people really started using it.
Yeah.
And like by 09, I think like everyone was on Facebook.
Yeah.
Nobody was on MySpace.
Yeah.
And they tried making a comeback too.
Yeah, they did.
like,
Remember we went to the MySpace. Remember we performed for them because they were revamping it as a music platform.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And they were
yeah,
looking
yeah,
for
yeah.
artists to, I guess, promote
Promote
in
it.
their initial launch.
Yeah.
So we went to audition for them, him and I. And
I remember that. Oh my god, I totally forgot about that. That's so funny.
yeah, and then it just because Justin Timberlake bought it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did. He tried making it into a
Which
thing.
is really
It
funny,
didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they got it off the ground. Like I think we signed up for it and everything, and I don't even know that they ever
We never
got
heard
it
from
out.
them. Yeah.
No.
What do you guys think of Spotify? Like, do you mostly listen to music on there?
I do.
Yeah, I listen to all
Yeah.
music on Spotify.
I really like it, but I'll tell you something about it I don't love is that I feel like it is so easy to just listen to like 30 seconds of a song, then move on. And I think it kind of encourages, and of course iTunes already did this before, but it sort of encourages just listening to like single songs at a time rather than really diving in to an album. And you can see the way artists, like, they have so much music coming out nowadays that it's too much sometimes. Like, some of my favorite artists now put out too much music. And
Well, it's always singles. And the way Spotify works, I actually messaged them once about something similar to this because I didn't like the way that the layout of the app was.
You messaged them?
I really messaged them. I'm not even kidding you, because it was like I can't save my music by album or by like artist. Like, I don't know if they've changed the app since.
Yeah.
I don't even remember honestly what I was complaining about, but I complained about something.
That's funny.
And it was just the way that you download it. Like, you can't download. I don't remember, but it had something to do with like you're encouraged to just listen to single songs.
Yeah.
You're not really encouraged to like listen to an album.
Yeah.
You know, and music has always been like that. Like, just like, oh, the top hit, and you're never gonna listen to the rest of their album. But
Yeah.
it's important because
Yeah.
like the good stuff is in the rest of the album.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like nobody really releases full out. Like, they do, but big artists these days, just like they're dropping singles every 2 or 3 months.
Right.
Like, that's what they do.
Yeah, or you have Drake who purposely drops like a 24-track 2-disc thing because he knows people are just going to stream quickly through it.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's sort
He
of
broke the
going into
record,
it.
right? Like,
Yeah,
when that dropped.
but like what, I don't know, what I'm trying to do with this album is just do what's just best for the music and just forget about all that stuff. And I've never really given into that stuff, and I'm very like thankful I haven't.
Yeah.
But there are so many people who are like, oh man, you gotta release music every week, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
but it's just, that's not what makes sense for like my music. And
Yeah.
I think it takes me a long time to get my music to feel right and to feel like worth it to release, just like you were saying about yours. And I think that's
good though. You're making it into
you
like,
can't
you
fall
can tell
victim to like you make your music for like because people listen on Spotify. Like,
right.
that's just not.
You can tell music is cheap. You know, like, you can tell, like, when you listen to a song, it's like, oh my god, the amount of production, first of all, that went into it. It's even though it's like expensive, it's cheap because there was no real artistry from the artist going into that song. When you have to sit and cultivate a song over like 3 months, and you're putting the lyrics, like you guys were talking about, putting lyrics in with this music, and it's like, no, I don't like it with that music, I put it in this music. That makes like a really good song. Like, you're really putting the work in the art. Whereas otherwise, it's like there's not really any work in that. Like,
Definitely.
there's like 20 different people.
It's
working
all
on
just
it.
like trends. Like, you're always going to have these trends, it's the same way there's like trends in musical styles and trends in hip hop and trends in folk music, whatever. And you got to just like do your own thing, I think, and like be yourself and not give that stuff too much credence.
Yeah. I don't even know what the current trend is right now with music, because
music?
I know the last time I paid attention to like trends in music was like Mumford and Sons. Like, when like Mumford and Sons was big, then everybody sounded like they had a banjo and a kick drum, and like that was every song. It was like kick banjo solo for like 4 years. That was every new band that came out.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
After that, I think the last time I paid attention was when Skrillex became like this enormous thing, and I was like, all right, that's it, I'm done. Like, hands are up.
I'm not listening to
It's
music
over.
anymore.
It's over. I'm not paying attention
But
anymore.
who's like, who are top 40 artists now? Like Drake, obviously.
I don't know.
Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran, yeah.
Yeah.
I like Ed Sheeran. I liked him more.
The
like,
Killers.
6 years ago. The Killers, really?
I think that song is still in the top 40.
Mr. Brightside?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, such a good song. Such a good song.
A great song.
Who are you listening to right now?
I listen to all sorts of different stuff. The last couple years, I've been getting really into more traditional songwriters.
Okay.
Like John Prine, Townes Van Zandt. Like, I don't know if you guys listen to any of them, but just their lyrics and their storytelling is like unbelievable. So I've really been going down that rabbit hole. Like, this guy Warren Zevon is so cool. He's this kind of like a little bit lesser known, but I don't know, like our parents would definitely know who he is. And Joni Mitchell, that kind of stuff. So been just really getting into that. And then I listen to a ton of alternative hip hop stuff like Astronautilus, Buck 65, this guy that I'm friends with named Chesky, who's amazing. All sorts of different stuff like that. And then I love some mainstream stuff too, like, J. Cole, whatever. So always kind of trying to find something else, but I would say it's always just like the best lyrics is what I'm always looking for, really.
Yeah. But you're you're a person that like actively tries to find new music?
As of the last couple months, I've been doing it again, kind of. But I would say during the making of the album, I listened to just a lot of songwriters.
Yeah.
Just a lot of like kind of classic songwriters who have great lyrics. And to me, it's more about just the emotion of it. Like, I don't know, that's just kind of what I was feeling at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, there are like there's a handful of songwriters in my head that the emotion that they can convey, usually guys with just like a guitar and singing, is just always baffled me. Like, how do you do that? It could be a simple song too, but it's the way it all comes together.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think having great lyrics necessarily needs to mean like super complicated and wordy always. It's more of just, is the song really special?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Can you hear the emotion behind the voice too?
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, like artists like that for me are like Damien Rice. Love Damien Rice. Glenn Hansard. Those guys like stand out to me in my head as like at least to me, some of the greatest songwriters of
I saw Damien live, and he brought out
really?
Glenn Hansard.
Where?
Yeah. It was at, I think it was Radio City Music Hall, or
that's amazing.
It was either there or a different theater, but it was really cool. I was absolutely blown away. It was just pretty much just him for most of the show.
Yeah,
with the guitar, and he was unbelievable.
So that guy can invoke such emotion in me. Like, talk about a guy who can sing about like sad, relatable things. Like, he's so sad.
Yeah.
He's so cool because he's someone who he just disappeared for so long.
Yeah.
And he was like one of the biggest artists in like Ireland or whatever, but he just didn't care. Like, it felt to me like, I'm sure he had all sorts of people wanting him to release music, but he just did it when it was right for him.
Yeah.
And came back and made this album that was just all about his relationship. And I don't know, that was so cool to me. Like, I've always loved him since the beginning.
Because he was in a relationship with I can't remember her name right now, but the singer, the female
Lisa
vocal.
Hannigan.
Yeah, Lisa Hannigan. Yeah, that's correct. I wanted to, for a while, I was taking a screenwriting class in college. I wanted to write a screenplay about their relationship. Like, it's fascinating to me. Like, they got huge. Like, they had been playing together, and I'm pretty sure he was homeless. I'm pretty sure he was like, did not have a place to live, and they were performing like on the street. And then they got huge. And then they had like a horrible breakup, and he just disappeared. He like moved to like a farm on Spain for like 10 years, and then he came back. It's like, that's a movie waiting to happen.
That's so weird. Yeah.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of a kind, that guy. Something else. Villagers is really cool if you like Irish songwriters.
Yeah? I'll have to check them out.
Villagers.
Yeah, I do like Irish songwriters. They're great.
Yeah. I just read a book by an Irish author. The book is called Young Skins. It's really cool. It's like all these different essays. I actually could see you really digging it. And it's these different sort of connected essays. And just the way this guy writes is like crazy poetic. His name's Colin Barrett. And I don't know, very cool descriptions of sort of small town Irish life. And it kind of reminds me of Goshen in a way, which is cool. Yeah.
That's cool.
Ireland is very small town. Like, they have that small town vibe. I've always heard that, like, you got to go to Galway, because I'm from Boston, so everyone always says, you got to go to Galway because it's just like Boston. Like, everything around there is like horses, cows, very small town, very rural.
Yeah.
I would love to go to Ireland. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I haven't been to Ireland, but I've been to England, and it's like that as well.
Same.
At least outside of like London and stuff like that.
Right.
Your brother was just in England, right?
Yeah, he was living over in London. I actually went to visit him back in December of last year. Yeah,
that's cool. He's not living there anymore. No, you're right. He said he was
now
living
like right next to me.
Yeah. So you were saying earlier, you guys get together and jam now.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get him on some new tracks.
Like that's not something that's happened since you were young.
No, we've always kind of done it, but it's never been organized. It's still not organized. It's just like he'll kind of come knock on my door type of thing. But when I was in 7th and 8th grade, he used to play in a bunch of bands, and they had a basement kind of like this one we're recording in, and they would all just be jamming, like James Wellington and Matt Wellington and all those dudes, and I would go over and just rap while they were playing, and that was some like, I remember getting ready for those practices. I would be like, oh man, I got to write a full song so I have something to to rap over top of their parts. And those were like some of my earliest memories of actually writing music. Like
Yeah.
it would just be on like loose leaf paper folded up, and I would just write. I didn't understand structure or anything, you know.
Yeah.
And they weren't playing with structure. It's just like
Right.
this kind of.
Did you
They just
feel-
play, and I would just like grab a microphone, and they'd just be like, "Okay, do something." And I couldn't sing at all, so it was just like rapping.
That's awesome. Did you feel like a little brother, like going into that room?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I never really felt. Never really felt like I was like one of them.
Yeah.
It's definitely a little brother kind of vibe.
Yeah. Well, you're a middle child.
Yep, middle child. Yeah.
How do you think that's affected you? I have like endless middle child theories. 'Cause I'm a
Yeah,
middle
we're
child.
both. Yeah, we both are.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've never thought too much or figured out too much about how exactly it's affected me, but I'm sure there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So for middle children, and this is like obviously an exaggeration, but based on my experience from talking to other middle children as well, it seems like it's the oldest, so it's like the firstborn. There's like that's sentimental to parents. It's the first child, and like whatever. They have you, and then they're like, but we're not done yet because we're not quite satisfied yet. So then they have the youngest, and then they're the baby. So you have the sentimental first child, and you have the baby who needs to be cared for because they're the baby, right? And obviously that's just like a very general way to express it. But because of that, I feel like there is a certain type of attention that is given less to middle children. And because of that, middle children tend to be like, or are more likely to be an outsider or have their own path, or rather are forced to stand on their own 2 feet earlier than the other 2 children. At least if it's 3 children. That's my experience.
I could see that for sure. I mean, my brothers were always like sharing a room and always kind of teaming up on me with, fighting and stuff in the house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely
Well, I
felt
think
like
yeah,
I
for
was
sure.
like doing my own
Because I
thing.
think the baby also looks at like the oldest
As like the example and the alpha.
He admires him, right?
Yeah.
As the
sure.
alpha. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great way to put it.
And he wants to be like the little buddy of the oldest.
Yeah.
So now you got 2 teaming up on you.
Yeah. So it's not like for me at least, like it's not like a bad thing. It's not like a neglect thing. It's more so just like, you can handle this. Just like go and take care of it. And like that's how I've always felt. Like I was the first one to move out. I was the first one to graduate, and I've traveled, to different countries and stuff. My brothers haven't really done that, and I don't know.
You
I've
kinda
just
do your own
felt
thing.
yeah, there's definitely a difference. There's a pretty evident difference when you put us next to each other, especially with Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew
You
and
and
I
Andrew are a little different.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
So do you feel like you and your older brother are, like who do you relate to more? Your younger
Well,
brother
me and
or
my
your
older brother are super close, and we're also closer in age than me and my younger brother. So I think that's probably part of it. And yeah, we've always kind of played instruments together, and I looked up to him a lot when I was younger, and he was playing in bands and everything, like I was saying, but also even in high school time, and he would play at a lot of hardcore shows and punk rock shows. He was in that kind of scene. And I would just go to those shows and really admire, like, that whole crowd, and it's just like little brother looking up to them type of thing.
Yeah.
But I remember like rapping at their sound checks at those shows and like freeballing outside of the venue.
Yeah.
Like
That's so cool.
all that stuff. And it was so cool to me at the time. Like I was
yeah.
like, oh man, this is like, that was like the best night of my life.
Well, it
Yeah.
sets you up, like that's like really cool. I wish I had an older sibling because I would love to have.
Yeah, you're the
things like-
oldest.
I was the oldest. Yeah,
Yeah.
What's
would
that
love-
like, Keith?
being the oldest.
Yeah.
No, it's like being the middle
Well, you're the
child.
oldest of 2.
Of
So
2.
it's just you and your sister.
Yeah, so it's like being the middle child, except they don't really give you that like firstborn type of special treatment anymore. So it's just like, oh, she's the baby, so whatever she says.
Yeah, take care of yourself.
Yeah, you gotta take care of yourself.
Yeah.
It's whatever.
Yeah.
I was independent anyway, but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
I can't imagine having a sister. Just having two brothers, it's just like such a boys' club.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah.
everyone I knew, like my dad was always like, because I played sports and everything, but his excuse for me sucking at sports was always like, oh yeah, well he has an older brother that he can, look up to and everything. And I'm like, why didn't you give me an older brother, Dad? Come on. I loved an older brother.
Depriving you of that.
Yeah, it's alright.
But another thing that you talk about that comes up a lot in my writing too is having divorced parents. That's a fascinating thing to discuss with people. What is your experience in that? Just as general as possible. Like, for me, I was quite young when my parents got divorced. I think I was 5 or 6 years old. And so there's not much sadness. And I actually think it enriched my experience growing up. I think it like doubled the amount of experiences I had. And my parents lived in the same town, so it wasn't necessarily inconvenient like I know it can be for some families. But so what is it like for you?
I was around like 9 or 10 years old when it happened, and I think it definitely has impacted me a lot and informed a lot of who I am. And I didn't realize that, I think, until the last few years of my life. Like,
Yeah.
I just kind of like thinking back on it. I think it's weird once you're in your 20s, you start to sort of realize things about your childhood that you're like, wow, that carried a lot of weight or whatever. But when you're young, just like you said, it's just your reality. You just kind of make the most of it. So
Yeah.
I do think it, impacted me a lot. I was talking to like my best friend about it because he has a podcast, and we had a similar conversation, and he was saying, oh, maybe it's like you're a middle child. You were always, going back and forth between your parents' houses, and maybe like you've always felt kind of in between with these different things. And maybe that's kind of what's always pushing you to, look for a sense of home or that sort of thing. So yeah, I definitely think it shows up a lot in my writing. I think you kind of like relate to each other when you meet someone else who has divorced parents. Like, it's just this weird,
Well, it's like an understanding
thing.
kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and everyone's experience is different with it
Yeah.
because I don't know, it's just different based on who all the people are involved. But yeah, I think it definitely informs my creativity a lot.
Yeah.
I think it probably encouraged me to create my own world in my head where I feel safe and I feel like, I'm kind of have this creative bubble and that sort of thing.
Yeah. When you say you feel like you don't have, or you said you were having a conversation on another podcast and they pointed out that maybe that's why you're searching for a home. You feel like you don't have a home? Like, do you feel not at home in your apartment in the East Village, or?
It sort of feels like home, but I would say it feels a little bit temporary.
Okay.
Like, I feel like I'm a little bit always between things and looking for the next place that's gonna like feel totally right. And New York City, it does feel that way in some ways, but in some ways it doesn't. Like, I think it has really made me want to step up and like embrace my independence and just kind of go for the things I want in life and that kind of thing. But it's also very lonely living in the city.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's like, that's the cliche about the city, but I found it to be very true. And I don't know. So I sort of feel at home now. I would say I do more now than I did like over the last few years, but I don't know if I feel at home now as much as I would like to, or as much as I did maybe when I was like a really young kid.
Yeah.
And I did move around a lot, kind of. I mean, it's all relative, but to me it felt like a lot, living like a few different houses, whatever. I'm sure you had a similar experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. When you move around a lot, you had mentioned earlier, like having a sentimental relationship with your childhood home. I don't really have that with a place because of, like you said, I moved around so much. So places, apartments, they don't do that for me. Like, I feel I don't have an attachment to places.
Yeah.
And I think it's because I moved from the house with my parents into an apartment, into this other house with my mom, into that house. And the whole time I was going back and forth between my father's house.
Right.
And so that is...
You're conditioned to it.
Yeah, I think that's a consequence of divorced parents for sure. Is like, you don't have that sense of stability within a place or in a place. You don't invest that in a place.
Yeah,
but I don't mind that.
I think it's kind of a strength in a way, though. Like, it's I think it gives you a sense of resilience that you're able to bounce around. Like I think that's part of my attraction with music. Like I'm not afraid of this lifestyle. I'm not afraid of that.
You're not afraid of change, and you're not like me. Like I know I'm super attached to my child. My parents still live in my childhood home.
Yeah.
So like when I was a kid, when we got like an addition onto the house, me and my sister were like, my parents talk about it all the time. They're outside like crying in front of the house, and getting an addition, and we were like ruining the home.
Yeah. Well,
But,
I know
like,
those experiences. It's like I feel like I went through them like so young or something.
right. But I still like my parents talk about like someday we're probably gonna. I'm like, no, don't leave the child at home.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Like I love that home.
So you lived in one house like your whole life?
My whole
growing up?
life, pretty much. Yeah.
That's
I mean, like,
crazy.
It's like it's so
crazy.
foreign.
I
Yeah.
still go back to like when I go home to Boston, like I sleep in my childhood bedroom.
Wow.
It's really weird. It's weird when you're 25.
Yeah.
But it's weird because like I like you, like I don't feel at home when I'm in New York. Like I love New York, but I don't like whatever apartment I'm in. I'm not at home in that apartment. When I go home to Boston, it's like it almost gives you like the sense of like,
Yeah.
I'm home. It's like you've been on a long journey and you like take off the backpack like, whew,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm back.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days later, you got to put it back on and go. But
Yeah.
I definitely feel like more grounded. You have that like sense of grounded when you're at a home. I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, that's a really foreign thing to me.
Yeah. See,
I go home now, and
but that's good. You can get grounded anywhere. Like that's what I'm saying. Is like you can be grounded. Like for me, it's like I have almost like a sense of instability until I'm at that ground. And that's just something that I need to like work on being here. But
yeah.
it is a strength that you guys
It's like
have. I think.
I aspire to like when when I'm fully grown up, I'm an adult and I want to have a home. Like I want to create one. You know, that feels really right.
Mhm.
So I don't know. That's definitely like something that I daydream about having someday for sure.
Yeah, that is definitely important. Like creating your space so that it's something that is compatible with who you are. Prior to moving here with Keith, we lived in this shitty apartment, like 20 minutes that way in Brooklyn. It was a terrible neighborhood. It was, not, and the apartment was falling apart. There were homeless people sleeping in the hallway. Like pieces of the ceiling were falling in. Like it was terrible. There were bed bugs in the apartment next door, and we were just like waiting every day for when they were going to get into our apartment.
Yeah.
Horrible. And when I was there, like my depression and anxiety was amplified, 100% amplified. And then, when that lease was up, we were like, it's a cheap place to live, but maybe we should invest in having a nice environment to wake up in.
That you feel
it'll cost a little bit more money, but I think that it might be worth that.
Yeah.
And zero regrets.
Oh yeah.
Signing a new lease to get into a place where I can wake up in the morning and be like, okay, like
Right, you can take that. It's like
this
that
feels
sigh of
okay,
relief.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely worth that investment. Yeah, to create that space for yourself.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. What else?
I don't know.
How do we feel?
Good.
Yeah.
This was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was awesome.
It's awesome talking to
Cool,
you guys.
man. I do think that we covered everything that I wanted to ask you about. Yeah, I was gonna ask you what your obsessions are, because you talk about your obsessions often.
Yeah.
So that might be the last question, and then we
Okay.
could find a note to end it on. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I think it's kind of endless. Like I'm a very obsessive person for sure, and I think writing is one of them.
Okay.
Like getting the words to sound right and feel right over the music. It's like this just exhausting sort of process.
And is it a
as
strength
much
or a
as I love it.
weakness?
I don't know. I guess it's probably a strength in some sense, but my music really needs to like feel right to me in the end. Like all the words need to feel right. Everything needs to be good, like kind of the way I dreamed up the mix and all this stuff. And I'll just keep going until it's there. So I think it's a strength and a weakness. Definitely writing, but I think the obsessions are also like thinking about Annie and this old relationship that's years and years out, and I'm still trying to get over it, still trying to find closure with it.
Mm-hmm.
That would definitely be another one. So I'd say all the sort of like themes, all the kind of conflicts in my life, I ruminate on them so much.
Yeah.
But I try to it's funny because that takes place in the writing too, and that's like where I'm trying to get it out. But I think it ends up being probably mostly a strength because I can kind of get something I'm really happy with, and as you said before, maybe that gives me a little bit of closure.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
what are your favorite things to do besides writing?
I love doing graphic design stuff and
nice.
taking photos, editing photos. I'm into all that. I love seeing good live music, like people I love, and just finding weird, obscure music. That's something I love as well. And seeing people I care about, hanging out with friends, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I also I hang out with a lot of like my friends who are musicians, and we talk a lot about their music and that kind of thing. So I don't know. I mean, it definitely like all sort of falls under the umbrella of music.
Eat, sleep, breathe it.
Yeah. I think I probably need some hobbies. But
No, I mean, hey, like,
all right.
it's the obsession that drives it, right?
right. Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, well, your obsessions definitely lead to amazing music, dude.
Yeah,
like,
man.
I've always
Thanks,
been a
man.
fan for
Thank
years,
you.
and I am, in the initial text I sent when I asked you to do this, blown away by Break Some Ice in the video, like, truly blown away.
Thanks, man.
Beautiful stuff. And do you want to leave any last pitches before we close this off?
Yeah, just thanks everybody who listened to this whole thing. Hopefully you enjoyed it. This was awesome. I appreciate you guys having me on.
for sure.
Everyone definitely, check out the podcast and everything. And hopefully you guys all like the album. It's called Holes in Our Stories.
Can they find you anywhere like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook?
Yeah, everywhere, just at Dylan Owen Music.
Cool.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks so
you
much.
guys again.
This podcast was brought to you by Sound Pollination, an audio production company helping creative minds make some noise.